From script to screen, every film is brought to life by visionary creatives and executives, all sharing one mission: to captivate the audience. Hosted by award-winning movie strategist Kevin Goetz, our podcast, Don't Kill the Messenger, offers a filmmaking masterclass through intimate conversations with Hollywood's most influential voices. And now, your host, Kevin Goetz.
Some people write about Hollywood from the outside. My guests today lived it from the inside. Matthew Specktor began his career as a studio executive at Tribeca, Jersey Films, MGM, and Fox 2000, before turning that experience into acclaimed books like Always Crashing in the Same Car and American Dream Machine. His writing reveals the art, ambition, and contradictions of Los Angeles, the very intersection of creativity and commerce that we explore on this show. And we're also honored to be joined by his father, Fred Specktor, one of Hollywood's most respected agents and a legendary figure at CAA, who's guided generations of top filmmakers and actors. Matthew and Fred, welcome to my show.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having us.
I'm so glad you're here. We've tried to do this for quite a while, and finally it came to fruition. Matthew, this new book is incredible. It's called The Golden Hour, a story of family and power in Hollywood. You really capture the underbelly, man, of this city, of a time that I grew up, you and I are of a similar age.
Yeah.
It felt so relatable and visceral. You're an incredible writer.
Thank you. And visceral was sort of the key, I guess, for me, just that I wanted to sort of get the certain textures and certain kind of particulars of this complicated place and complicated industry. I was looking for that.
How did you find your voice as a writer? Because you seem like you're born to write. There's such a natural flow to your writing. It's not linear. It's almost dreamlike, very haunting.
That also pleases me a lot. I knew at a very young age that I wanted to be a writer. I was a reader from a very early age, and a lot of that came from my mom.
She was kind of a voracious reader?
She was a voracious reader, and I think she was a writer, but for a long time, a frustrated writer.
What did she write?
She wrote short stories. I think she really, in her heart, kind of wanted to write a novel, and then she wrote screenplays.
What was her name?
Her name was Catherine, and she was someone who had a kind of ambivalent relationship to the movie business that rubbed off on me a little bit, too. I didn't have a burning desire to enter the industry when I was a kid, but I knew I wanted to write. And because I was just such a voracious reader, I think like any writer, you arrive at a voice by reading a ton and then somehow, I don't know if the word would be synthesizing or distilling or discarding, crystallizing. It sort of teaches you something. And the question of how it ends up sounding the way it does, who knows?
Who were early influences for you as writers?
As writers, yeah. I think Scott Fitzgerald was a very early and important
What is
influence.
this story about his apartment?
When I moved back to California and my previous marriage exploded, I moved into a little apartment a few doors down from the Directors Guild on Hayworth. And the landlady, she was this very odd duck. She was like, Billy Crystal used to live here. And,
wow.
And Cary Grant used to live here. And, so it was this building that had this kind of old Hollywood history. And then it just happened that across the way was the apartment building where Scott Fitzgerald died. It was not, his apartment building was actually down the block, but his mistress, Sheila Graham, lived in the building that was directly opposite mine.
What year-ish?
1940... God, I want to say 1940. I think he died in 1940. It might have been 44.
Were you in like the same apartment?
No, I was opposite. Directly across the street was the building where he died. So I could look out my window and I could see, and I knew which one it was. So it was interesting.
F. Scott Fitzgerald. And who else?
Yeah, he was big for me.
I think another one, if I can glean from reading the book, is Joan Didion.
Oh, yeah, sure. When I was in high school, Didion was sort of presented to me as the Los Angeles writer. And I was very resistant to her. And I think in a lot of ways, there's stuff in the various books that feels kind of pointedly anti-Didion, which I don't want to say that too loud because Griffin is a friend. And,
by the way, Griffin loved your book. I read a review of his about your book.
His book is wonderful.
Are you guys buddies?
We're friends, yeah. I think he's such a wonderful writer, wonderful person, wonderful actor, wonderful filmmaker.
And again, a singular voice like yours.
Yeah.
Fred, I've got to ask you, you proud?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
What was he like as a kid?
Well, he liked sports,
But I wasn't good at sports.
No, I wouldn't have said that, but I didn't want to insult you.
Did you go to any of the games?
I went to all of them and apologized for it later on, saying that my business took me away from it. But Matthew told me I was crazy. I came to all the games.
Can I tell you something that's so interesting? If the opposite is usually true, where the father says, I went to all the games, and the kid says, no, you weren't. Yeah. And let me tell you something, the kid's always right, because the kid remembers. So the fact that you tell your dad that he was there is like, whew.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot for people who have children who weren't able to, because of their careers or whatever, not participated in that, and then they regret it later. Yeah. So that's great. But you guys didn't have the rosiest of relationships growing up. My father and I had a deep love for each other, but it took a while for him to sort of understand me. Did you have a similar kind of relationship?
I think my relationship with him has been pretty strong since my early 20s. I think that the teenage years were a little choppy.
Because of the divorce?
To some degree, yeah. But I also just think we weren't spending a lot of time together in those years. We spent a lot of time together when you were very, very, very present when I was a kid. And you were certainly present when I was a teenager, but I was mostly living with my mom.
Was he affectionate?
Yeah.
I love Matthew, and I think he's a great writer.
Yeah. And he's
but more than that, Fred, I think why I bring it up is because when you read the writing and what's going on underneath it, you start to see he's really a deep guy. He's not just a superficial writer. He's going to darker places. Are you surprised when you read some of his stuff? And
yes.
Tell me what most surprises you or has surprised you in this book.
Well, this book didn't surprise me because I was there, and I was there through most of it.
There's a little artistic license.
There's some. Well, yeah, of course.
Yes, but I know the artistic license, and I know what's real. And every time I read it, and I've read a lot of it, and I've read it many times, and I could read it again tonight.
When you talk about Mike Ovitz, for example, and you say, I've taken artistic license.
Sure, yeah.
Was that a little bone of contention because Fred and Mike were so close?
I think, it's funny. There's certainly plenty of license in the book. And given that I'm a novelist and I wanted it to read like a novel.
Well, that's what's so genius about it, too. You all have to read this book because it is that very fine line between fiction and nonfiction. Yeah. And that's really hard to do.
It was really hard to do. And it's sent me back to feeling like I will never write this type of nonfiction again.
You know what? My book came out this week.
Yeah.
It's like giving birth. I imagine. I'm sorry. Apologies to every woman out there. But I say that only in hearing what my women friends say. Once they give birth, they say never again. And then they're pregnant 2 years later or something. Yeah. They're going through it again. And I feel like that happened with my first book. I said, I don't think I could do this again. But I had a 2-book deal.
Yeah.
I said, I've got to write one. And I did, and it took it out of me. I'm ready to just crash right now.
It definitely is a grind.
But I might do it again. Who knows?
But in this case, the very specific thing I'm feeling like, I needed to be faithful to the historical record. I needed the things that I was describing to have happened. And I also needed to find the ways that I could somehow kind of inhabit these scenes and make them.
I called Matthew and said, did this really happen?
He knew better than you did in terms of remembering. And did what he asked happen?
Yes. There's a scene in the book with you and Bob De Niro and Mike Ovitz. Afterwards, you said, it was exactly like that, but that meeting didn't happen at Matsuhisa. It happened in the office. And I thought, well,
clear as a bell.
Yeah, I thought, well, that's
clear as a bell.
Yeah, and I thought that's okay.
But that's okay.
If I change the room, and with people like Ovitz, where I was kind of allowing myself to imagine subjectivity for them, right? There are scenes with Ovitz in which I'm in Ovitz's head. I haven't seen Mike Ovitz since I was a teenager or in my early 20s.
But it almost doesn't matter because it's your perception of hearing the story and then giving it back to us. Like that's from your perspective. That's kind of what gives you the ability to do that.
And a lot of it is a certain amount of psychology. I think I read for every person that gets represented in the book, whether it's Ovitz or James Baldwin or whatever, it's like I read every...
Did you really have a college course with James Baldwin?
I did. Of course I did.
I found that super intriguing. What did he teach you? I know the answer is it has something to do with being something enough?
It was
What is that something?
Oh, you mean what he said
Yes,
to me
what he
in the
said
class?
to you.
For it to have happened or for it to be beautiful is not enough.
Beautiful is not.
Yeah.
It may not be enough.
Yeah, it may not
right?
be enough.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's funny because I was, in many respects, and I think this would be true of any 19-year-old, I was too young for the experience. I mean, he was teaching way over our heads.
Where was that?
He was teaching at Mount Holyoke College, and I was a student at Hampshire, and we were chosen by lottery because there were so many people who wanted to take his class. They took 3 from each of the 5 colleges, right? So 3 from Holyoke, 3 from Smith. So I get tossed into this room, and I knew who he was. I had read Giovanni's Room, but I didn't really know. At 19, I was just some white kid from LA. I didn't really have the same understanding of the civil rights struggle, all of those things.
Yeah.
And then I walk into a room, and he's kind of like, he's not teaching short stories by contemporary people. He was making us read Henry James. And I was just like, what are you talking about, man? But he was so lovely and so generous. And he was an enormously kind and gentle man and very firm, and certainly could be in the classroom too. But for me, it was a lesson in, writing isn't this kind of glamorous thing. Because I'd grown up here, and it's like in 1983, writers didn't have to go to offices. I had known screenwriters growing up, so it was like they can do lots and lots of drugs and still get their work done. They have nice cars, all these things that turn out to be not remotely true for actual writers. And I think he, even at that age, for me, was sort of someone who illustrated like, this is a serious job, and it has a kind of moral or ethical dimension to do it.
It's incredible to have that kind of tutor or mentor, just even for a semester.
Yeah, it was
to be in that orbit.
It was incredible.
What was it like growing up as Fred Specktor's son? That had to have a little bit of an effect on you.
Well, it had a positive effect because he was a good father.
Didn't a young David Lynch come up to you?
Yes.
And say to you something like,
Are you going to be an agent like your father? And I said, I don't know.
I'm surprised you didn't say, no, I'm going to be a writer.
Well, I was maybe 12 or 13. I went to work in the mailroom at CA one summer, in the summer of 1981, I think it was. And I remember thinking for a moment, like, this could be fun, because it was fun. And then realizing...
Made some friends, right?
Yeah, I made some friends. And then I realized, like, this isn't really who I am. But the encounter with Lynch, which was...
Before he was David Lynch.
Yeah. I mean, he had directed Eraserhead, but I hadn't yet seen Eraserhead. It would be a couple of years before I did that. But you knew who he was, and you told me.
So Fred, what can I say, man? You have had one of the most respected careers. I hate to lean on the fact that people say you're the oldest living agent in the business.
It's true.
But I revere age. I hire age. I want to be inspired and taught by people who've lived life and have experience. Do you find your energy level at this stage? You seem as though you were when I met you years and years ago. I don't see any change.
Well, I love my job. I really do. I love my clients more than I should, but I love them. They're loyal, they're good, and when they come with me, I know everything about them.
You were always stern and very decisive in your ask, but very kind and fair. I always found you on the other side of the table because we had a very good friend in common, the late, great Dan Petrie Sr.,
Correct.
who became like a grandpa, really, to me.
Yes.
And I'm very close. In fact, Donald just had dinner at my home with Peggy. And I love that family tremendously. What was it like working with Dan? I'd love to, just as a little homage here.
Well, he was really easy.
Canadian.
And he was a very well-respected director in the television business, not necessarily in the movie business. And today, there's no difference between. He'd have been better off maybe today.
Because the separation is so less.
Yeah, there is no separation
There's no
today.
separation.
No, they do these 5 to 8 episodes.
Limited series.
Yeah,
It's
and so
like an epic
it's like a movie. And it's hard to find the movies today. You have to either see a preview of one or look at one sheet of one because you don't know where they are.
I read something that you said about the business shrinking, and yet the business has expanded in so many ways. As an agent, how is it shrinking?
Well, look at how many studios there were and how many studios there are. And they make less films.
But you have the streamers making up for it.
Yes, that's true. Yesterday, the funniest thing happened to me.
Tell us.
I had a guy call me about a script that a client of mine had written 8 or 10 years ago and said, we want to do this draft, and there are people involved that really want to do it. In fact, there are very important stars that want to do it. And we'd like to have him do probably a rewrite of it. And if I told you who the people were, you'd say, it's amazing. That draft, I remember people saying, God, he didn't listen to you at all. In other words, he didn't write what he should have written. And
Suddenly it was genius?
Yeah. And we moved on, the time. And I was just so surprised that people would dig up an old script and suddenly find life there.
Well, it happens where it just was ahead of its time. Or, look, I always say that it just takes one person to say yes to anything. I got rejections from so many publishers before I finally got Simon & Schuster to say yes.
Right.
And now it just seems like, oh, that was easy. Of course, it was not easy at all.
Well, many pictures get taken a long time to get made, sometimes 7 or 8 years or more. And I saw a movie the other night, which I was very impressed with, Nuremberg. And if you haven't seen it, I urge you to see it.
It's a terrific performance by Russell Crowe.
Oh, no question about it. He'll be nominated easily because it shows some footage that I saw when I was in the Army. And they said, nobody's seen this footage because the U.S. Army didn't release it. And I was a teacher there, and I happened to ask whether, can I see this footage? And it's horrendous.
It's horrendous. We've seen those images. They show them in this movie in order to show the gravitas of what happened.
It's a very meaningful movie and brilliantly acted and brilliantly shot. And
Russell makes you almost like a Nazi.
Well, that's his whole trick. I don't mean his trick, Goering's trick.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely. The charm of that man and to seduce, right? Hey, Fred, where did you grow up? Where did it start?
I grew up in Beverly Hills.
No shit. Beverly Hills. And did you go to Beverly Hills High?
Uh-huh. I grew up on the poor side of Beverly Hills.
Where's the poor side of Beverly Hills?
Well, this was during the war, and the poor side was south of Wilshire Boulevard.
Right, which now is you cannot afford as well because they've become.
My dad paid $21,500 for our house, which was a block north of Olympic.
You didn't have aspirations to be in the film business.
No. In fact, I went next door to my friend's father's house, and I wanted to be a cameraman on films.
You'd have a job
he said,
all the time.
First thing he said to me was, you can't get in unless you're part of the family.
Ah.
So it's not a good way to do business. But
you went into the Army.
Yep.
Where did you serve?
Fort Ord.
Did you go overseas? My dad was a Marine in the Korean War.
Well, this was after the Korean War. Mm-hmm. I'd missed all the wars. Think how lucky I am.
I understand. I'm just doing the math right now. How did you get into what you got into? How did that happen?
An accident. Well,
there's no accidents.
It was an accident, trust me, because I didn't know what it was. Mail boy, I didn't even know what that was.
So you went into a mailroom?
Yeah, at MCA.
And whose desk did you first work on?
Well, I didn't work on a desk, but I was Lew Wasserman's assistant.
Oh, damn. Hold on. Lew Wasserman's assistant, the godfather of Hollywoo.
He was the most powerful man in the industry.
We don't have a Lew Wasserman anymore.
No, we do not.
Do you think we need one?
Yes.
Often we do, don't we?
Yeah.
To solve that SAG-AFTRA strike, to solve the Writers Guild strike.
He's the kind of guy that would say, I'm going to give $10,000 to the Jewish welfare. And he would say, that's not enough.
Let me tell you what else he did. I'm telling our listeners, you know this. The Motion Picture and Television Fund. Lew Wasserman was responsible for having every employee from every studio donate a portion of their paycheck.
1%.
1%.
Right.
To the Motion Picture and Television Fund, which was the right thing to do. And it can't happen today for whatever reason. And I'm trying. Sherry Lansing and I were trying to. Jim G and I were trying to. Jim, actually, when he was at Paramount, had the fund set up stations with recruiters from the MPTF. And it just was a bust. So that wouldn't happen with Lew Wasserman. He would make it happen because it was the right thing to do, taking care of our own. So you must have learned a ton from him.
I learned a lot.
You miss him?
Yeah, of course. I liked him very much. I mean, it scared me to death, to tell you the truth, when I was working for him. I'll tell you a funny story. We were listening to baseball games because he liked to listen to. I was driving the car and Ted Williams had a home run. This was in the later years of his life. And I said, oh, that's great for an old man. And he said to me, whoops, what did you say? Did you know my age? And he was 41 years old.
Oh, no.
Well, I was 19, you know.
I got to just process that. Yeah, 41.
When you're 19 or 20 or 21, what do you know? And I realized, and I started to say, well, I didn't mean you. And he said, it's okay. It's the business. This is a young man's business, and it's about you, your age.
Yeah.
And I'm driving his car. What am I? I'm his chauffeur.
And he was less than half the age that you are now.
Yeah, that's correct.
I was just going to say, when we come back, we are going to talk to both Matthew and Fred about the book, The Golden Hour, and more inside Hollywood stories. We'll be back in a moment. Listeners, the Motion Picture and Television Fund is a nonprofit charitable organization that supports working and retired members of the entertainment community. This wonderfully run organization offers assistance for living and aging with dignity and purpose in the areas of health and social services, including temporary financial assistance, case management, and residential living, and has been a crucial lifeline to thousands during and beyond critical times that our industry continues to experience. To learn more, visit mptf.com. Please join me in helping others in our industry during times of need. There are so many ways to offer support and get involved. Thank you. Here's a quote from the book, Fame is a Prison, that it traps you inside other people's perceptions until you can't help believing in them yourself, until your own lonely effort to be a human being, to be nobody, is extinguished. Ooh. Ooh.
Yeah. That's from the Baldwin section, right?
Yeah, chapter 6. Yeah. That's a really deep statement and really devastating.
Yeah. It's funny. Sometimes I do remember writing that, and I think it's funny because it's like I'm not a famous person and never have been. I think at this point, famous writer is kind of an oxymoron. But I wasn't really interested in writing a normal Hollywood book.
Oh, it is not normal.
These are my amusing stories of famous people. I was interested in not just writing about my dad, although certainly that was a prime motivator.
Or at least what motivated you as a result of your relationship with your pop.
Well, yes, it was something, the essence of it for me was just realizing that you, Dad, and I both, and my family kind of lived through the entire modern motion picture industry, one way or another. We were all kind of embedded in it from all these different angles, that you had been a young agent and working for Lew Wasserman, who I think invented the modern motion picture business. I say modern, and I mean basically like post.
After Jaws and Star Wars. In my world, that's when things really changed, because that was the beginning of the wide release. It was the beginning of huge money poured into marketing campaigns that didn't exist prior to 1977-ish.
That's true. But I would even say before that, the business transformed from being owned by the studio moguls, right?
To become corporate,
to become
behemoths.
Something more, right. But for 50 years, it kept changing. It was sort of like the studios were powerful, then MCA was all powerful, and then for a brief moment in the late 60s, the talent became very powerful.
With the beginning of United Artists.
Yes, and the kind of Easy Rider moment where it was sort of like, oh, maybe we should kind of let the artists make these kind of crazy
There's that wonderful
movies.
Book, movies from 1969.
The Mark Harris book,
Mark
The
Harris.
Pictures That Are Revolution.
It's a marvelous book.
Yeah, that's a great book.
I have to meet Mark Harris. I haven't met him.
He's wonderful.
I'd like to meet him. That was a great book, and I thought it was so great to hear about, was it Dr. Dolittle?
Dr. Dolittle.
Comparing it to like In the Heat of the Night.
Yeah.
And like the same year, Neil and I, my husband and I, were at a dinner party a couple months ago, and some guy who's, I think he was an octogenarian, he was certainly maybe approaching 90, and he said, well, the quality of movies now. And I said, excuse me, that I don't buy that. I said, there's some wonderful pictures, so many international pictures, but you're not seeing them because there's so much noise out there.
Yeah.
And he said, well, like when the year of The Godfather. So Neil went into his Google and he looked into what was that year. And you had wonderful movies that year. The Godfather, Cabaret, Last Tango in Paris, but you also had movies like The Poseidon Adventure, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, even Beware the Blob. So there's always been this balance of kind of more fluff and popcorn along with important movies.
For sure.
And I've tested consumer sentiment around that for years.
Right.
And every year it's the same. 67-ish% of the audience says quality stays the same. The other third is divided in halves. One is the quality's gone up, one's the quality's gone down every year. So I think basically that tells me that people and the quality of movies really haven't gone down, which is encouraging.
Not by that much. I think what's changed mostly is context.
You betcha. And format, platform.
Yes.
And as I like to say, Matthew, consumer behavior.
But
because consumers in the driver's seat.
Right.
When you came up, man, it was the studios told you, here are the 3 movies opening this week. Take it or leave it. Here are the videos that are hitting street dates. Take it or leave it. And 3 networks and then a 4th. Here's what you have to watch. You'd go around a table at a dinner party and you say, what was your favorite show? You won't even get consensus on one show. And if you do, you're lucky. There's that much good content.
Yeah, but content. And content is not film.
Well, I'm going to challenge that also because here's my thought of that.
Yeah.
The younger generations view content as the same ecosystem. They don't view it as a film, as a TV show, meaning Gen Zs and half of millennials.
Yeah.
Boomers and Gen Xers do see the separation. And I think that is a difference. So when I say content, it's not meant as a pejorative. It does for people who are purists who go back and say, look, your dad and I sit on the boards of the American Cinematheque. We love the movie-going experience, right?
Right.
At the same time, you have to embrace the fact that there's a lot of good stuff that's out there on streamers and maybe as good, if not better quality than what's in a movie theater.
I suppose that's true. I think movies used to come out and they'd stay for a long time, right? Months, sometimes even longer than that. So people could see them, they could return to them. And the idea too that, you didn't have to plan to go to the movies. You'd just go. And sometimes you just be like, you want to go to the movies? Yeah. What are we going to see? I don't know. We'll see what's playing when we get there.
And it was Lew Wasserman really in the late 70s who saw Jaws. They were at a screening in Texas. And Fred, I don't know if you remember this story or not. It was a blinding rainstorm. And they saw through the windshield wipers a line outside of the theater in the rain.
I know this story.
Of an entire audience waiting to go see this movie. They see the movie. The movie scores extraordinarily well. And at the end of it, Dick Zanuck told me this, they were all standing around afterwards, and Lew's head of distribution said, we're going to put this in 600 or 800 screens, which, my God, that's nothing now. That was a huge deal then, at once. And then Lew said some version of, I want it in only 400 screens. Because I don't want it in Palm Springs. I want the person in Palm Springs to drive to LA to have to see it. And I thought that was so genius.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That was Lew, but also he changed the whole trajectory of the business by doing that. Right. You understand how important that was. Suddenly, people are spending huge dollars on marketing campaigns.
Right.
The stakes completely changed, and our business changed forever as a result of that. To your point, it was not really about nurturing something for up to a year, by the way.
Yeah.
This was now, you were going to go in, you were going to go big, and the tentpole was born.
Right. But you also experienced it in a room with other people. And now, I mean, obviously you still do with some movies, but when we were talking about audience behavior, people don't go as often as they used to.
Are you hopeful about the business?
Am I hopeful about the business or am I hopeful about the art form? Like, I'm hopeful about movies.
I love you so much. Because here's what you said.
Yeah.
You said in your book, forms don't die.
Yeah.
Only people and civilizations are mortal.
Yeah.
Unpack that for us.
What this book really is, to me, is a book about the end of American empire. And the movies are just sort of a very conspicuous lens for that and an articulation of that in all of its different kind of moods. The spur for the book was when I really started thinking about my dad going to work for Lew Wasserman and Wasserman's relationship to Ronald Reagan, and realizing that the entire late 20th American century was born in the building where my father worked.
You bring up a point, Matthew. You say no more middle-class movies.
Yeah.
And no more middle-class people either, just riches and poors.
Right.
Oh, my Lord, is that prescient?
Well, it certainly seemed prescient to me. That was another kind of important thing for me in writing the book, was just this moment that haunted me when I worked for Fox 2000 and I was at a corporate retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill Mechanic, who I really like, and I mean, I don't really know him, but I thought he was a wonderful guy and a guy who, very, very approachable, very smart.
And a good writer, by the way.
Yes. Oh, yeah, sure.
I don't know if you knew that. Yeah.
I did not know that, but also someone who just, really knew what a good movie was. But at this retreat, he sort of gathered us all together and said, no more middle-class movies. He said, we can make films like Titanic, where the budget is over $100 million. And this was before Titanic had been released. And it had not yet come out. And the thing that I think is hard to remember is that the word of mouth on Titanic before it came out was that it was going to be a big bomb. That seemed to be the sort of conventional wisdom on the street. Obviously, I think Mechanic and the people at Fox knew otherwise. But, I remember being I was like, really? You think we should double down on bets like that? And he said, we can do that. And we can make movies for under 10, like The Full Monty from Searchlight, which had been a big hit.
Can't do that anymore. Do you remember every year Searchlight would have some hit that would make a lot of money?
Yeah.
I don't know, The Full Monty made like 250 million plus worldwide.
It made a ton. But
they always had one. And then suddenly it was the world of the haves and have-nots.
Right. And I think that was just understanding that movies that were in the kind of like $50, $60 million range were not earning out. It was just something that the studio had observed and that he was sort of telling us, this is what we can do. We cannot make middle budget movies anymore.
Interesting.
And I remember at that time looking around and thinking, well, this is very bad for the movie business, or at least bad for most of the people who work in the movie business, because it's going to kind of stratify things economically for the workers as well. But I also noticed at the time that I thought, well, this is happening in other areas. You mentioned baseball earlier. I was a big Dodger fan. The Fox at that time owned the Dodgers. And I remember just sort of thinking that suddenly there were guys who were very highly paid and guys who were making league minimum. And there was a kind of middle space was starting to get a little squeezed.
Now.
Yeah. And right.
I didn't realize now that the ball clubs get dinged for spending over a certain amount. They've got to give money back
they have to
the league.
They have to pay back into it. Right.
Yeah. I didn't know that. That was
tax.
kind of interesting. I just sort of learned that fact.
Yeah.
So watching your dad at work as a young guy in your teens, what left an impression on you?
What left an impression was that there are and always have been these kind of cartoon portrayals of what a talent agent is, right? I read What Makes Sammy Run in high school or saw Broadway Danny Rose, or, there's this kind of public conception that agents are these kind of hustlers who are just, in it for the bucks. And I think what I observed with my dad was that just really wasn't the case, that he was very concerned with, did he think that the movie in question was good? And did he think that the deal that he was making was fair? And I think that is a good thing.
Fred, aside from Lew, who else were influences for you as a young guy coming up in the business?
Phil Kellogg was a guy at William Morris that was the head of the motion picture department, and he was a very smart guy.
Did you prefer literary, or meaning writers and directors, or did you prefer
writers
talent?
And I work with all the talent. I don't want to limit it to.
Would you say,
anyone.
Can you give me a name of somebody who you're most proud to have seen blossom like they did?
Well, there's a writer I represent that's incredible. His name is Jez Butterworth, and
wow!
Signed him when I basically had only seen his plays, and he's a guy that I thought was a star, and he is.
I'm going to just throw out some names because I've been watching them as flash before us. For those of you who can't see, there's a wall behind Matthew that has pictures of past clients, current clients. Just give me a top-of-mind word. I did this with Rick Nacita and Paula Wagner when they were guests, and it was rather fun. Let me see what happens here.
All right.
Gene Hackman.
He was great. I must say, I never had one argument with him, ever, about whether he should or shouldn't do a movie. We disagreed sometimes, but then I was able to do something that got him the job. For instance, and he won the Academy Award for this, when Clint Eastwood called me about Gene made an offer to Gene. I took the offer and gave it to Gene, and Gene passed. But I didn't tell Clint right away. And then a week went by, and I know Clint's a guy who likes answers right away. And I said, I better respond to him, but he doesn't want to do it. But I knew there was something about the script that was right. He had a great cast. I said, here's his phone number. You didn't get it from me. And
Clint called him?
He called him. And 10 minutes later, I got a phone call. It was Gene. I have to do this movie because it's not about violence.
This is Unforgiven, of course.
What?
Gene was afraid that it was too violent, right?
That's it, because kids would criticize him.
Look at the mastery, of your dad. No, I'm looking, going, he just allowed it to unfold in the right way. And he just let it like a good maestro.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Fabulous.
Right.
All right, Danny DeVito.
Well, funny, I saw something in an email that he sent me, which was a picture of the review of the short film that Danny was directing that I signed him from.
Minestrone?
Minestrone. It's a short film.
He was like a ball of energy, wasn't he?
Well, he was a wonderful guy, and
still is.
Yeah, that's true.
You still represent him.
Yeah.
And I think he's quoted as saying, you're still out hustling from every gosh damn day.
That's right.
You shared your first screen kiss, your only screen kiss with Danny DeVito.
Explain. Fred, I had no idea.
No, it's true. But Danny was doing a movie that Chris Pine was directing.
Yeah.
And if you remember it and saw it, because very few people did.
What was it called?
Pool Man.
But, I think Chris Pine is a good artist. And it's all right when an actor gets an idea about doing a movie because he sees something other people don't.
Let me ask you about Morgan Freeman.
He's great. He's a wonderful guy.
He just came out recently. I think I read that.
Copying his
voice. And he's got one of the voice of God, as they say, a very iconic voice. And a lot of deep fakes have tried to take his voice. And he came out saying, when you do that, you are robbing me. You're stealing from me.
And the lawyer hears from his lawyers. And then they shut it off.
That's great. Helen Mirren.
She's a remarkable woman. She's not like anybody thinks because she's a dame. So in America, she's a dame too.
Exactly. Here. She's a broad.
Yeah.
In a good way. She's a magnificent actress.
She really is.
It must be such a privilege. When you hear these names that I just mentioned to you, there has to be a responsibility. Like, my God, they're entrusting you with these massive, dare I say, legendary careers. Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Well, I love my clients, I can even understand why you get fired once in a while from actors or filmmakers, because they may not think you understand them and understand where they belong. And every artist wants to be thought about like Martin Scorsese is thought about, like Woody Allen was thought about, like a number of artists. And so if you have somebody who believes that, and I believe every one of my clients belongs at the top of the list.
I know you do. I mean, I really feel that from you.
And so it isn't any fun if you're representing people who have no talent.
Have you had any regrets that there was someone you had the opportunity to represent, but they got away from you?
I think I missed out on some people. I think because I didn't have the nerve to call them, because there's a shyness about me that I feel.
And a self-deprecating quality you have.
Yeah.
I hadn't realized it so much. I'm not sure if I'm remembering this correctly, but didn't you even take classes in photography or something?
Yeah, I did.
How do I remember that? It's so
I don't know either, but...
From Dan Petrie, I think.
Yeah, I did, and I loved it, I always wanted to be...
Oh my gosh, that goes back to your love of wanting to be a cameraman.
I wanted to be a DP in my early days. I wanted to go to work as a cameraman.
I want to sort of bring this to a close by asking you both just a couple of questions about where you think the future is going. And are you hopeful about the future? I kind of got into this, but I didn't really probe it. But Matthew, where do you think this business is headed? And does that excite you or frighten you? Hope you're not here.
Is there an all of the above answer? Look, I am by definition hopeful about the art itself, the form, and that kind of goes across the board, whether it's literature or film. It's like, I know and I meet so many young people and agenting too. I gave a talk at Chapman College a couple years ago. And I remember meeting this guy and just being like, oh, this is the sort of person that like an artist needs to be represented by, is this guy. So it's impossible to not be optimistic about the actual thing, movies. As far as the kind of American motion picture industry and the streaming economy, I'm not so optimistic about that. But I don't think of the threat as existential. You know, people go on and on about AI.
Well, that is a whole nother topic. Clearly, we haven't even scratched the surface of where that's going to take us. You do say dream is stronger than reality. And fear, like love, is stronger even than death. So clearly, a sweeping articulation of the book's core worldview. Hollywood thrives on this truth, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so do the characters.
And so do lots of people outside Hollywood these days, unfortunately. But it would be nice if some respect for truths and facts were to persist.
Absolutely. Fred, what about for you? You hopeful about the future?
Reasonably so, but I think the difference today is they make very few movies. Studios do. Helen Mirren did a streamer this year. Or 2 years ago.
Yeah, 1923.
Yeah, that's correct. And she had a good time on it. But it's short. It's only 10 episodes or 8 episodes, and you get some thrill out of it. My personal belief is I still like to go to movies with Nancy, my wife, and I saw one last week that moved me, as I said to you before. I went to the theater to see it.
Good for you. Fred, I hope you're around for as many years as you still want to do this, because we need you, man. We love you. And by the way, say hi to Nancy for me.
I will.
And thank you for your contributions to this business in the most sincere and earnest
Thank you very
way.
much.
You've really been a role model for so many of us in both your talent, but in your extraordinary character. And so I applaud you. Matthew, your book, The Golden Hour, A Story of Family and Power in Hollywood, needs to be read by everyone. It's a wonderful expose on Hollywood, but also a very personal story. And I was really moved by it. So thank you so much. And both of you, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very
so
much.
Really appreciate it.
Pleasure was ours.
To our listeners, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. For more insights into filmmaking, audience testing, and the business of Hollywood, I invite you to check out my books, Audienceology and How to Score in Hollywood, at Amazon or through my website at kevingetz360.com. You can also follow me on my social media. Next time on Don't Kill the Messenger, I'll welcome the multifaceted producer and veteran network chief, Gail Berman. Until then, I'm Kevin Goetz, and to you, our listeners, I appreciate you being part of the movie-making process. Your opinions matter.